today's event is about, like usually we are doing events with presentation about ICOs, about regulation, about whatever. But this one is a little bit more dynamic. We're doing it for the first time. So we will see how it goes, but it's a very important topic about the whole off-chain versus on-chain transaction and whether Bitcoin needs to fork into blocks with larger sizes or not. Like, these are a lot of very important topics which we'll start in a bit. But first of all, as every event, Vlad is doing what's been happening in the last month in the whole blockchain space. So we'll start with that, and then we'll tell you how the debate is gonna be, because we want you also to participate. We kind of found a format where you guys can come to the stage and also give your opinion and give your thesis about the whole situation. So to be more dynamic. So if you want to start with the whole thing first, and then we'll tell you how the debate is going to look like.
Yes. Can you hear me? Does this work? Kind of works. Okay. But we'll need this microphone, I guess. Okay, we'll fix that later. But all right. So as usual, before we start with the main thing or the main part of the event, we do something like a update about what has happened, which are the three most important things that happened during the past month. And actually, I don't select them. We have a poll in Facebook where everybody can vote on the biggest event of the month, and I'm calling this November headlines. So these are the results of this poll for this month. You can see that the no SegWit fork is the top contender here. Then the party hack and Bitcoin going over $1,000. 10,000, sorry, of course, 10,000. Actually, more than 11,000. Some Japanese exchanges, it was close to 12,000, I believe. But yes, these are the things. I'm not going to go from like in the proper order. I'm going to start with the Bitcoin price. Since today we had something like a 10% increase, and then there was a fall actually, then an increase again. The fall happened like 1 hour ago, but then recuperated. The price recuperated. So the question that I always get, like no matter where I go, is Bitcoin a bubble? This is like the standard thing, and you can hear this on Bloomberg as well. People asking this question: is this a bubble? Is it not a bubble, and so forth. So I'm not going to. I mean, it's a bit weird, I must say, the question. And also, some people are comparing Bitcoin to the tulips, and I don't think this is a very good comparison. But is it a bubble? Is it not a bubble? I think only time will tell. We've had bubbles or price going up in Bitcoin to like $1,300, then falling down to $250. We've had previous bubbles before this big one. So, I mean, is it a bubble? Is it an increase? Definitely Bitcoin, what we can say is that it's going mainstream in some way. And also having in mind that CME exchange is going to do or present futures, Bitcoin futures next month for trading. Maybe we'll see some even like larger amounts of money going to Bitcoin. But I mean, you never know in the cryptocurrency world. What we can say is that Bitcoin is perceived as the backbone of the whole crypto economy. If something happens to Bitcoin or the price of Bitcoin goes down, usually most other assets also follow. So hopefully everything will be fine with Bitcoin, and that's why Bitcoin should be kept very robust and very secure. But that's going to be a topic of the debate after that. So why is the price going? Again, could be because of the scaling debate. There was a fork between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, which kind of divided the most, so to say, the extreme opinions on what Bitcoin should be. And so now we have two kind of Bitcoins. We have more actually, but Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin are the primary ones. So could this be also the reason for why the Bitcoin price is going that high. Could be. We have tethers. This is a big topic currently of whoever heard about this. Is there a connection between the tethers and Bitfinex? And if everybody or many people try to convert tethers to dollars, what will happen to Bitfinex? Will they be able to provide like the dollar for each tether? So tether is, if you don't know, tether is a centralized cryptocurrency which is based on Bitcoin, some kind of Omni network or something like this. And the idea behind it is that one tether is always $1. Although when tethers, there was a hack pretty recently, 30 million tethers disappeared. And then the price on Kraken for tethers was 90 cents, $90. So it's not always, I guess, $1. But a lot of people believe that if something happens with Bitfinex, which is the largest exchange, and that might be in connection to the tethers, this could impact the Bitcoin price in the same way that, for example, Mt. Gox did in 2014. It remains to be seen, but a lot of people believe, and this is the biggest systemic risk in the sphere, or in the Bitcoin sphere. Another reason for the $10,000 could be dump money going to converting to smart money, and dump money being ICO tokens. So if you have some huge amounts of ICO tokens and you want some stability, you might be, might be a smart move to convert some of those into Bitcoins. New capital inflow, so new people learning about Bitcoin. It's been on Bloomberg for basically every day, all the time. So a lot of new people learning about this, and of course there is also always the FOMO, the fear of missing out. So if this is going up, maybe it's time for me to go in as well, which is never, it's a bit problematic, especially having in mind we're reaching peak levels of the price. Everybody wants to get in low and then sell high. So I mentioned SMEs futures. Korean trading, Korean exchanges are trading a huge amount of the bitcoins now. So the Korean market, having in mind it's regulated, maybe a lot more people coming in. And mentioned the FOMO. So what is the reason behind the $10,000? Could be all of those, could be even other things apart from those. Nobody knows, but these are just some kind of maybe some points that need to be considered. What I want to leave you with is to watch tethers, like what's happening with the tether, with the tethers and Bitfinex, because as I said, this is very, very important. So next point, Segwit canceled. That was a big surprise actually for a lot of people. What is Segwit? It was a fork of Bitcoin. It was supposed to happen on block, on this block. Going back, finalizing with 84. But actually, people, before this block was reached, the people behind this proposal, they decided not to fork. But there were a couple of miners, or at least some people, it was not really sure if it won't happen despite this letter which was sent by the people who were behind this, that it's not going to happen. Despite this letter, there were people who believed that it might happen with the minority mining power. So there were some miners who might have wanted to fork anyway. But this fork didn't happen because actually there was a bug in the software. Actually, there were two bugs in the software, but I'm not going to explain exactly what the bug was, but the fact is that the fork was supposed to happen on this 4, the block that ends at 4, but the system basically stopped running, the software stopped running on the block, which is this 82. And actually there was also a bug in the mining software. So even if this was somehow overcome, the miners would have been unable to start mining immediately. So if they haven't decided to stop this, it would have been a huge PR mess. And not only PR, but they would have had problems with exchanges and so forth. So huge, huge mess. The interesting thing is that if it did happen, the mining power in Bitcoin and Bitcoin 2x would have split maybe in this 10 to 90%, and this would have meant that miners who are mining the 2x fork should have done this for a duration of 2 months and at a loss of $150 million, which is about, I don't know how much money per day. So if they really stick to that, the miners would have lost a lot of money. So maybe they decided not to do that. So money is king. Also would have caused 10-minute blocks in the standard Bitcoin if there was 10% mining power remaining in the Bitcoin. So for each block to be found, it was not going to happen in 10 minutes on average, but 100 minutes. So it would have slowed down the entire network. And what this means actually also relates to the debate that we are going to do today, is the fact that reviewing and testing consensus changes is super hard. And if there is even one small mistake that somebody overlooked, this could cause a lot of problems to the entire network. So touching distributed systems or distributed blockchains is something that needs to be done very, very carefully. The fourth thing, the parity hack. So actually this is the second parity hack. The first one happened in July. And the project that I'm working for, Eternity, was affected. About 15 million in terms of in ethers were lost from our project, and in the whole amount that was hacked was 30 million. But this new bug, which happened on November 7th, actually locked $150 million in ethers. So there are 584 addresses which use the Parity software, the Parity wallet or smart contract software, which had some ethers on them, and now that ether cannot be moved. So what happened is this guy, DevOps 199, was playing around with the library, which is at the center of the Parity software, and he was trying to do some interesting things to manage it. And what he managed to do, what he succeeded to do, I don't know if it was intentionally. Some people believe it's intentionally, or that he was trying to actually not kill the library, but to take control of the library so that he can control these 584 addresses. But what he did actually is just suicided the library. And the library is at the center of the software, so none of the actually, the wallets are multi-sig. The multi-sig wallets are smart contracts, and these smart contracts, they depend on this library. And when this library was suicided, these smart contracts are no longer operational, or you cannot do anything to interact with them. So anything that was on these multi-sig wallets is now locked. And the interesting thing is that Parity is a product of Gavin Wood, and he's a developer who was at the very start of the Ethereum. He was one of the founders, I think, or co-founder of Ethereum. And he did an ICO, which was called Polkadot, for his project called Polkadot, which is related to scalability, let's call it very generally. And about $100 million of ethers from the ICO were stored on the Parity wallet. So basically, because of his faulty software, he now doesn't have access to his $100 million US dollars, which is kind of ironic for me, and it's very funny. They still have 1/3 of the money. Economy, which is also it's a popular ICO. It has roots or some connections here in Bulgaria. I think Launch Hub, they have invested in that. 34 million locked for them as well. And there's this Musiconomy ICO 4.8. And there are a number of other ICOs which some part of their funds got locked. And yeah, this is what happened with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, DevOps 199, this profile is no longer available. He just deleted it. But there are now even T-shirts with this, I accidentally killed it. You can buy a T-shirt with this. And actually for me, it's quite funny. I mean, I must say it's super funny. I couldn't believe it when it happened. I couldn't believe it. My first fear was if Eternity has any funds on these wallets, and when I found out that we don't, it was just like really, really funny after that. And yeah, this is actually the situation. I mean, I always show this chart. This is all the times that we have organized meetups here in Sofia, and you can see Bitcoin just exponentially exploded this time. Like really, it's because of the meetup, of course. And I have also Ether. Ether still, I mean, it's good. I mean, $500, pretty good. It's pretty good, but when you look at Bitcoin, it's just so much more impressive. And this is it. So what we have now is the debate. We have team on-chain, and we have team off-chain, and we will have you as well participating in this debate, but Ivo will actually tell you about the rules of the debate.
Yeah, bear in mind that we're doing that for the first time. I've participated in my life to these American-style, British Parliament-style debates. We're not doing it exactly like it, but we're trying to make it a little bit organized, right? So the point here is to have the two sides. We will stay completely neutral, by the way. We're not taking no sides. The point is, well, yeah, you're right. The point is, though, to have like a proper description of what's happening in the space from the point of view of the two sides which are defending their respective opinions. So they'll be exposing a presentation of what, like 5 minutes each. Then we'll give them a round of debate. So basically it will be like maybe 10 minutes of each side. And then if any of you wants to come and defend any of the sides of the debate, they just come here, and for 1 minute we'll give you the word. So you can say whatever arguments you have. We'll try to basically manage it, because otherwise it's going to be like crazy, you know, one of those, you know, how we say in Bulgaria, krčma debates. So that would be bad. So yeah, we'll try to manage it as much as possible, but at the end of the day is to kind of present what's going on and what are the two sides of the equation, and everybody will make their own opinion. At the end, we might vote. So there'll be the idea to vote. We will just ask you to raise your hands, and counting your hands, we will see which sides lose and which sides win. So let's start.
I was supposed actually to be part of the off-chain team, so I might not remain neutral, just so you know. So I might support the off-chain team. But yeah, we can start with team on-chain. Guys from team on-chain, Zach and Blagovest, please have you have the floor, and these are your arguments. So who's going to present the arguments? So one guy presenting the arguments, and Bobby, okay.
I guess these are my arguments. Okay, very short. Let's keep it short. What we do, we exchange cryptocurrency in big amounts right now, hopefully in smaller amounts in the future. We also started the first crypto fund in Bulgaria, which is already working, but is yet to develop and bring more user interfaces. The website is Blockchain.bg. Zach?
All right. My name is Zach Harvey, and co-owner and co-founder of Lamassu. We've been manufacturing Bitcoin ATMs since 2013. The idea is to make it super simple for people to just go in with cash, put it into the machine and get Bitcoins immediately, or vice versa, send some Bitcoins to the machine and get cash out. We've recently added a few other cryptocurrencies as well: Ethereum, Zcash, Dash, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin. Have machines all over the world. We actually have one machine here in Sofia in the Interpret building. That's it. Our website is lamassu.is.
Okay, so the point for me being here is I don't really care who wins this debate. I really care about the truth, what is best for cryptocurrency, and what will work so that it scales and we choose and work with the best cryptocurrency of all. All of you know we have reached something like a stalemate situation with Bitcoin scaling. Some people claim that small blocks and second layer solutions are the future. Other people claim that bigger blocks and potentially when the time arrives for second scaling, it'll be in the future. This is a huge debate. So far, the status quo is winning because it's really, really hard to change such a big structure. It's almost impossible. There is a huge silent majority of the participants, of the stakeholders, who are not. They're not voting. They're not loud. They're not expressing opinion. They're just following what is going on anyway. My biggest point right now is that we have reached a point where we can increase the block size of Bitcoin that would not compromise the security, and it will scale better at the moment right now with lower fees, and it will accommodate more transactions per second. The situation that we have right now is artificially pumping up the transaction prices, which drives people away from Bitcoin into competitive cryptocurrency. And this is very bad for adoption. This is very bad for the utility of the coin, meaning that the potential store of value will also decrease because the utility, the basic utility of the coin is also lower. Right now, as of today, I send a Bitcoin transactions and the cost was about $7. And we have only about 40, 50 million people in the world using Bitcoin. You can imagine what will happen if 500 million or a billion people use it. It's going to be unusable, basically. The second layer solutions are still not ready, and we need time. We're not even sure that they're going to work and they're going to scale well. So my first and only point is that we need to figure out and work on scaling solution on the Bitcoin blockchain right now, figure out a way how to increase the block size. And that's something that is needed immediately. That's it.
That's it, actually. You have the word next time. We have the second position now, so you'll be speaking after this. Okay, so maybe you move to these chairs, and it's fine. Just stay there. Come. No, it's fine. It's fine. Stay there. Although, I mean, you have the impression, since you are, I mean, on a better piece of furniture, that you're more right. But okay, just yeah. You can come to this chair here, and yeah. It's gonna be very hard to move around.
Okay.
Yes, you have the chance to say everything.
So,
you can stand.
hello everybody. My name is Asen Kovachev. I'm working on off-chain scalability solutions, which is why I'm interested in this talk. And so I'm not going to talk too much about myself or my project, so let's just jump into it. So I'm going to stand because I think this is more comfortable than those chairs, just to make a point. So basically, yeah, we listed a lot of points, but I'm just going to go quickly through them, and then I'll wrap this up. So basically, when you do off-chain solutions, anybody can implement their own off-chain solution without actually putting a bloat on the chain. So to me, that's important. The fact is, as we are working on such a solution, I know that the main chain doesn't care that we're doing this. We are going to find a way to do a two-way peg, and we're going to move the Bitcoins to another chain, and it's going to have completely different properties without bloating the main chain. The other thing is that you don't need to change the protocol. Changing the protocol is risky, as you guys have seen, and Vladi just recently showed. The 2x failed due to a completely rookie mistake. There were off by one errors and things like that, where, I mean, this change wasn't actually anything really big. It was just changing some numbers, and yet they couldn't really figure it out, how to orchestrate that so it works. So that's important. Keep things working is important. Then in the spirit of decentralization, what I have to say is that the blockchain, if you do an on-chain increase, that will only help you for a little bit. And in a year, we'll probably be in the same situation. And we're going to be arguing, should we increase it to 16? Should we increase it to, I don't know, a gigabyte? And how would that work in third world countries? Yes, we talk about how the network scales and grows exponentially, but the reality is that while you can have SPV clients that don't need to download the whole chain, full nodes will become less and less if this grows exponentially. So we have to keep this at all costs so that it's accessible to the whole world, to keep these full nodes going. Then again, I mean, this is, in my mind, on-chain solutions are just a short-term patch. I don't think this is really going to help. It's more reactive than proactive. Main chain bloat, anybody? Yes. So as far as microtransactions, I don't think blockchain actually can solve scalability as is. A linear standard blockchain is not scalable. If we want to put 10 billion people working on Bitcoin, that's not going to happen. Not in this. I'm saying if we just say Bitcoin itself, because let's say that that's what people are going to use. Even Ethereum, I mean, something else will have to come up so that people can start so that anyone can start using blockchain-based solutions. Again, making my point about how 2x failed with just a little bug, rookie mistake. And so what we have works. And every little change needs to be tested really well. So to me, all these scaling solutions should happen outside the protocol. Don't touch the protocol. It's fine as is. Find other solutions. SegWit, some people would argue that SegWit isn't really an off-chain, but really it segregates and offloads that data off the main chain. Yes, there is extra data that goes in the segregated part. So yeah, overall, to me, you guys know that a lot of permanent solutions have started as a temporary solution. So there's always, this debate to me is just started because of a frustration. Oh my God, I'm paying $50 for a transaction. This needs to happen. Why can't they make their decision to just change one number? If they can't change one number, what can they do? Where is the innovation? These are all the things that I hear. But the reality is that this is a reaction. Like we shouldn't do temporary solutions and patches. We should think long term. How would that look with 10 billion users? How can we solve this for the average consumer out there? So.
All right. So, what's next, Ivo?
So from now on, we heard a couple of points. You guys can have like a couple of rounds of debate basically between you. So the second layer of speakers can present their points. How many of the audience kind of understand the two sides of the debate? Because it went a little bit technical. Okay, good. That's very good, actually. We are game. That's good. Okay, so yeah, Zach, if you want, basically,
Continue.
from here onwards, you can either start speaking your points, or you can basically debate against the points which Asen said, and from then on, you can basically do with both of them. Okay.
So I think one of the issues that we experience on Bitcoin ATMs is that we get a lot of new people coming to try our machines, because something that's simple about our machines is that you can try Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies out in very small amounts. Say anywhere from, in the US, from the smallest denomination of a note is $1, so from $1. And people have done that in the past, or $5, and 70% of the transactions are under $100. So these are really great machines, not necessarily for people that are going to invest $10,000 because they already know that they want a big piece of Bitcoin. But rather people that try it and have tried it over the past years, bit by bit, just to try to get a good feeling for it. Some of those people never bought more. Some went on to buy larger amounts, perhaps on exchanges. Some went on to be either Bitcoin developers or Bitcoin investors. But when you have fees of $5 per transaction, when you have fees of $20 per transaction or higher, these machines don't make sense anymore. Somebody's not going to put in $20 to pay them all for fees, or to have 10 of those dollars go to fees. So what you're doing by just kind of letting these fees go up there and not allowing more bandwidth for Bitcoin is you're keeping out a lot of these people that would otherwise get interested in Bitcoin, and instead they'll either go home or they'll try something else. Now it might be Ethereum, it might be Bitcoin Cash, it might be Dash or Zcash, but it's definitely not something that's good for Bitcoin. Now the idea that, well, hey, you know, maybe some of this problem is because those people should not be buying Bitcoin, they should be going on another layer. Well, when you have transactions that are already congested, putting on another layer won't necessarily relieve those transactions. It can relieve maybe perhaps additional things if they actually work. But you still have this base problem. If somebody really wants to get into Bitcoin and see how it works, they won't be able to do that, and they will start going into an alternative currency, or, as I said, go home. And then another thing I'd like to address is I think it is very important with Bitcoin to be conservative, to move slowly, to be very careful. You don't want to make rookie mistakes. I personally was never really for Bitcoin 2x, and the reason for that is I just don't think it's a good compromise. On the one hand, you get SegWit, which a lot of the big blockers didn't want to begin with. On the other hand, you only get a 2 megabit rise. So what actually happened with SegWit 2x? Well, it got SegWit through, and that was it, and then it died. So I don't think that that was necessarily a good compromise, and on the other hand, they never had a good development team. They had basically Jeff Garzik working, and that was it. And that's not serious, and that's not something that I ever really could accept. On the other hand, with Bitcash, you really do see that there's a lot more development going on behind it. It's getting more serious. They're taking themselves more seriously as Bitcash, Bitcoin Cash grows in size. So the development thing I think is very important. It is very important to be conservative. But on the other hand, is SegWit really super conservative? Has SegWit, is that really a change that's, you know, just the smallest little change, and we can't change anything with Bitcoin because who knows what happens, the smallest little mistake, versus introducing a whole lot of code that was originally designed to enable side chains that was later kind of forgotten a bit, and now it's all about Lightning Network, which is basically a startup. It might work, it might not work. If it works, terrific. Maybe we'll have really good results from that. I doubt that even if you do that, you'll see a reduction in the fees of Bitcoin. It will just mean that once you're on Bitcoin, it will be easier to move the money around. But for those first-time users, it's really not going to be any easier to get onto Bitcoin.
Well, Bobby, what wallet did you use to pay $7 for your transaction? What do you use? Trezor, you use the SegWit? Yeah. Well, I used the SegWit today, and I paid €1.50. And I also, I wanted to bring a point that you mentioned earlier about fees, that actually most of the big names like Coinbase, BitPay, and Zappo and others haven't implemented yet SegWit. And there is a big improvement. I personally noticed it. And it's not about waiting for the Lightning Network or other off-chain solutions. And basically it comes down to what do we want from Bitcoin? Do we want to compete with the banks, or do we want censorship resistance? Because SEPA and SWIFT are working on huge improvements for instant transactions internationally and zero fees. Like already SEPA is working on a project that is going to allow zero fees among the Eurozone nations instantly, and it's going to involve all those countries up to 2020, and it started this month. So that's blockchains cannot compete with that. They cannot make zero fees, and either we scale the protocol or we scale the blockchain. But scaling the blockchain is going to convolute the already complex process, which creates more additional layers of complexities. And in the end, yeah, like if we want to compete with the banks, we have to be on the other level. It has to be on the censorship, all inclusiveness, everybody to run full node, to be financially sovereign, and to own their private keys. That's the main point. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. And if you increase the block size, and in the end we're gonna run server farms, and we're gonna rely on the security of somebody else, and it's gonna be again the trusted third-party model.
So now we'll give you another round of a little bit shorter time, just to kind of respond to the point, each of you if you want. And then, if you guys want to jump on any of the sides, you'll be welcome. So probably I'll be doing the time.
Okay, anyway, I'll be very quick. My point, it doesn't really matter how much is the transaction cost right now, because if adoption goes well, it'll for sure increase. So it may be $1 or $5 today. If the growth rate is the same, it'll be $50 in 6 months or a year. So it makes it less usable. And the thing is, if there is something which already works and would not compromise the integrity of the system, why we don't use that? And then wait for another second layer or whatever. Because we're not sure that the second layer solutions will work. But we know for sure that increasing the block size right now does work. And also that's a much easier and less complex change in the protocol relative to the Lightning Network or sidechains or anything else that is up there.
So I just want to point out though that SegWit already gives you close to 4x increase. So, and I also have seen transactions be relatively low, because we've seen many times when the price jumps up, a lot of people are like, okay, I gotta move to the exchanges, maybe cash out, and you're seeing things like, oh, $50 per transaction, $100 per transaction. We're not seeing this right now. We're at all-time highs above $10,000. A lot of people are cashing out, and we're not seeing that. Like, I'm not seeing that. And so my point is, we already have a solution for that at the moment. And I think this is I just want to make the point that increasing the size of the block is just a reactive short-term solution. I understand that it feels like right now we need it no matter what, but it's just kicking the can down the road. We will be in the same situation very shortly after. What do we do then? We keep increasing it. This is not a solution. So yes, it will have a little bit of growing pains, but I'd rather have growing pains than growing blockchains where, as you pointed out, at some point, if we increase the blockchain size, if we allow it to increase too much, we will end up with those farms, so that only a person with a whole data center can be running a full node. And that's centralization. That's something we don't want.
So basically how it's going to look like, if you want to make a point on any of the sites, if you want to make a point on any of these sites, just come and sit, and we'll give you the spot. The point is to have always one seat free. So once you make the point, you will leave, and then the next person can come. So if you want to come to each of the sites, just come to whichever the site you choose. Cool. And we'll just make a round with these guys. Let's finish the round with these guys, and then you can do the point.
I have a question just for his statement.
That way the question would be a bit of a messy thing, but it doesn't matter.
Don't you think that Lightning Network also causes centralization?
Best question.
Well, what I think about the off-chain solutions is that they are actually independent. So if there is, like, I'm just speaking broadly in abstract here. I'm not going to answer your question directly because, I mean, I think there are better ways to do it. And I'm sure better ways will emerge. And so my point is, I'm more in favor of things like sidechains. I'm more in favor of things like rootstock, where as soon as someone finds a good way to do a two-way peg, all this is going to become a non-issue. So as far as the payment channels, I know you can scale and have a lot. I personally am not in favor of that because I think, wow, you can scale a lot there. You still have to close those payment channels, and this is still a scalability issue. So I don't know if that actually answers the question.
I don't think the debate is off-chain versus on-chain, but in general, but on-chain versus off-chain right now. So because the people who are for on-chain solutions, they also agree that off-chain solutions are needed. I mean, they are not against, right? But the debate is which one is the priority right now. And
so again, my stance on that, coming from development world, is that I don't like short-term solutions. And to me, this is reactive and a short-term solution. Of course it's going to help. Of course it's going to allow more people to transact cheaper. But I think we'll have that same debate in 6 months, even if we double the block. That's just what I think.
Okay, so before we continue, maybe I can jump in real quick and do something like maybe like a presentation of both sides in a way that it's more understandable. So usually when people are talking about like what is needed, is it on-chain, is it off-chain, it's more or less people who want. There's this article that I shared in the group, which was talking about Austrian economists against Keynesian or Keynesian economists. So one part of the one part, the Keynesians, they want money to move. Keynesians, money to move faster. So if money are moving faster, it's better. I mean, the economy is going forward, people are spending money. So this is actually the predominant model that we have currently in our society. The economy is in a way stimulated by a centralized authority. The other part, which are the Austrians, they believe that money doesn't need to move that fast as long as the money itself is very stable and secure. So you can say that it's more or less the same idea between like the on-chain and off-chain people. So on-chain people would like to see a solution to the problem now. And actually, when I started BitHope, one of the primary points when I started this is that you can do very low, very cheap international transactions. So you can donate, for example, €5 and then pay 10 cents. And this currently is not working. And we have a situation in which I actually had a donation of $5 or €5, and the transaction fee was €10. So this is, like, the current situation is not really great for BitHope, I must say, for donations. Also, we have seen that, I mean, 3 years ago, or two or more years, maybe 3 years ago, there were a lot of establishments here in Sofia which started to accept Bitcoin, and they kind of died out. There are not that many places where you can go now and pay with Bitcoin because it doesn't make sense to pay for your, let's say, lunch in €5 and pay for 5 or 10 euros for a fee. So I get what the problem there is. But at the same time, when I'm talking about the off-chain side of things, I believe that the primary use case for Bitcoin currently and maybe for some time in the future will be digital gold as store of value. And this Bitcoin is doing perfectly. As we can see, a lot of people trust it as the most secure network that is currently available. And it's not doing so well as a payment network. And businesses, of course, which need to attract people to use their business, and they require a higher amount of transactions. And this is, of course, not really happening or not happening that well currently, because of this idea that in most of people's heads that if I spend my Bitcoin, €5 Bitcoin today, I would have lost another €5 because I mean it's going to go twice in size, and the price of Bitcoin tomorrow will be 10 euros. So this, I mean, you can see that with this huge increase in value currently, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend Bitcoins, because you are losing on the price increase, which, I mean, is expected to follow. So this is just what I wanted to say. Maybe you want to say something about the economics theory.
Well, I want to say that it's false. And if you can unhear that, but yeah, that has nothing to do with Keynesian economics. Nobody's trying to stimulate the economy. I think what people that want to see lower fees want to do is they want to create access so that everybody can enjoy Bitcoin. This is not a coin that's for the elite. It's not a coin for people that don't mind paying 100 or perhaps even more dollars just for sending a fee. It's so that everybody can have access to their own money and controlling their own money and being their own bank. So it really has nothing to do with stimulating the economy, and it also has nothing to do with short-term versus long-term solutions. I'm sorry if I'm speaking too fast. It's just, yeah, you got me. There are all sorts of long-term solutions, but at the same time, you don't want to just stop Bitcoin and say, well, the only people that can invest in Bitcoin are people that have $1,000 to invest in. You know, if you wouldn't have the other cryptocurrencies, that just means a lot less people would get excited about Bitcoin. And what I want to see is I want to see as many people as possible get excited about Bitcoin, about the ideas of controlling your own money, of holding your own keys, and verifying them as well. So the question is, how do we do that? Well, you can't verify your own keys and you can't have a node if you can't even get onboarded to Bitcoin in the first place. You're just going to stay on the sidelines. So it's very important that people are able to access Bitcoin and onboard onto Bitcoin in the first place and using it as well. So yes, I want both. I want people to be able to use Bitcoin as digital gold and as a payment system. And that's how it's always been sold, and we've always expected, even those of us that are not Keynesian and subscribe to the Austrian school of thought or even anarcho-capitalism. So what I think that is important is at the one point you've got to say, well, from a business standpoint, what is important for allowing people to get onto Bitcoin? Bitcoin, business and technical. So can we have both? And what do we do right now? Well, right now, the easiest thing to do is to have, say, a 10 megabyte block size. That won't endanger the system, the network too much. It won't be too hard for people to run nodes. And at the same time, you will have a lot of fee relief. And at the same time, you have to start thinking, okay, well, maybe the scaling isn't only about the size of the bandwidth itself, but maybe there are better and smarter solutions. Let's really start researching that instead of, you know, just getting and fighting on Twitter. And you have some ideas out there. You have things like block DAGs, like Spectre from Aviv Zohar, that Zcash have already said they're looking into. That sort of technology can keep things on-chain and almost have as much bandwidth eventually as you have. These things improve over time. Technologies improve over time. So what you have to do is you have to buy yourself some time, and you have to keep Bitcoin accessible to everyone.
Can I just add something real quick? Right now we're in this euphoric stage where because of the price, everybody's thinking just about the profits and nobody really cares about the fundamentals anymore. Once this turns around and the hangover comes, we're going to end up in a system which has refused to change, has high fees, and other systems competing with it are performing much better in terms of scaling and in terms of improving their technology. So we're not living in a closed system right now. we have competition between these cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin has the network effect and the first mover advantage, but that's not going to last forever. If nothing changes, it's not going to stay as a digital gold, because in order to stay as that, it must have some utility, and the high fees are reducing the utility extremely fast.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we can start with the audience. I suggest you have another question.
Okay. Well. Okay, I want to reflect on the digital gold stuff. First, money has to go through those stages of development. Money cannot just become a medium of exchange. First, it's a collectible, then it becomes a store of value, then it becomes medium of exchange, and then it becomes a unit of account. Then we don't have unit of account because everything is priced in fiat. We have some kind of medium of exchange, but we have really, really good store value. And it's just a matter of time to develop those technologies to go through those stages, the last two stages, the medium of exchange and unit of account. It's going to take some time, and I think the way to go is with scaling the protocol. But I'm not against hard forks and increasing the block size, which is, by the way, not block size anymore, it's block weight. And I like that idea of going with big blocks. I'm not against it, but the thing is, I'm afraid of too much centralization, and as we saw with the mining community responding in kind of negative way with the whole situation, especially with Bitmain acting as a monopolistic actor. And yeah, I'm just concerned about these issues. And yeah, I want to see people use Bitcoin as much as possible, and not to be concentrated on only privileged people, like you said, that have access with big capital. But at the moment is designed for those, I think, and with time it's gonna change. And I cannot say for sure if Lightning is gonna work, but a lot of smart people working on it. And from what I saw, and I go to conferences, and I believe in those people that they're gonna come up with really good product.
Okay, so one thing I want to add here is that when we put everything on chain, we don't have right now, with how all cryptocurrencies work, they're neither they're not exactly anonymous, they're pseudonymous. We use pseudonyms, but we see everything that happens. And so there's also the potential for people censoring transactions or censoring and declining service based on the history of that transaction. And so where I'm going with this is that privacy is also a very important thing when we talk about decentralization. And you cannot really achieve good privacy with on-chain solutions. Yes, there's things like Monero, but there's always issues with that. So I'm also seeing that privacy, when you're solving scalability off-chain, you're also inherently solving privacy when you build a system in which the information is only shared on a need-to-know basis. And the second thing I want to say is that, ironically, on-chain and off-chain scalability solutions are actually not mutually exclusive. This isn't really who's going to win, in my mind, because they can coexist. We can have both. But to me, if we focus more on the off-chain solutions, which we will ultimately have to at some point implement, having these constraints right now is actually pushing a lot of people to work on these problems, to solve them for the future. If we just keep raising the blocks, people might not even start solving those problems. So to me, I'm all for the innovation. I'm all for the real thing in the long run, which can only happen if we focus on, in my mind, on off-chain scaling solutions. So, yeah.
So now we'll give the floor to whoever comes from the audience, even though
Okay. Hi, my name is Todor, and I'm sitting here not because I'm against off-chain solutions, but because I disagree with the approach of the Lightning Network in particular. And as you said yourself, temporary solutions become permanent, which might as well happen with the Lightning Network itself. So first of all, you already touched on onboarding. Onboarding would be terrible with the way Lightning Network is implemented. People are talking about fees of $1,000. There were posts from developers, from core developers that mentioned that. Yeah, exactly. Eventually in the future, not right now. On-chain, yeah. So onboarding would be terrible with such fees. Actually, I have prepared like a list of questions. Yeah, exactly. So that's a big issue with the Lightning Network that I see. Another thing is, third parties. Third parties are needed in the Lightning Network because you can't rely on nodes being online all the time, correct? So how is this secure? I mean, that's not something that's ever been tested. We don't have a testnet. Okay, so, okay, never mind that. Okay, sorry. Well, the other things are not so important, but actually, sorry. Yeah, the third parties. The third parties, I mean, how can you rely on a third party not colluding with each other? Because there won't be that many of those. This will not be decentralized in any way compared to any other kind of off-chain solutions, such as side chains or something like that. And the fees could be integrated on-chain, the off-chain fees, which would be much better than what the Lightning Network is doing and won't result in such high onboarding fees, for example. Sorry if this is too technical. Okay.
So, generally I'll give the floor to the audience and then you guys will...
Yeah, microphone. Just one short comment and I will leave the stage. We see that the community is already split. The debate was over when SegWit 2x was cancelled. So both parts of the community, they received what they wanted. I mean, the gold bugs, they got store of value, right? So they have it. The merchants, they have Bitcoin Cash, which they can use for everyday commercial payments. So both of the communities received what they wanted. They have different niche, different product. So I don't know what we are arguing about at the moment. I mean, do we argue if Bitcoin Cash is better than Bitcoin or Bitcoin is better than Bitcoin Cash? I mean, it doesn't matter because one is Apple, the other is Orange, so they're just different animals already.
So, okay,
that's
good
it
point.
from me.
We have them both and we don't need neither of them. Well, basically, we have them right now.
Yeah, well, the debate is about, I mean, it's on-chain and off-chain generally, but we have focused on Bitcoin, which is, I mean, it was expected. But what we are debating is the Bitcoin, which is more than $1,000 now, does it need to be something else than store of value?
10,000.
Again, 10,000, I'm not used to that. But there is this, because somebody mentioned that, like, I mean, people won't be able to go into Bitcoin because of the high transaction fees. I think it was you, Zach. So how do you get into Bitcoin? What you do is you send money to an exchange or to a broker, and then that broker sends you the Bitcoin. And the fee that he pays, you don't pay it. So it's super easy to go into Bitcoin if you want to, and it's basically there is no other way. I mean, maybe you can pay your friend some money in cash and he can send you Bitcoin, I guess, but this is not really how people get into Bitcoin. I mean, usually you just do, I mean, you send some money via bank or SEPA transfer or wire transfer to an exchange, and then you buy the Bitcoin. If you, what? Well, I mean, it maybe if you want to buy $20 worth of Bitcoin, it's not going to be, I mean, that easy. Even brokers here in Bulgaria, I think there is a minimum amount of how much you can buy. So, I mean, well, yeah, sure. But then you just need to send, like, for example, 500 leva or 1,000 leva to an exchange or to a local broker. And, I mean, you pay maybe more than the exchange price, which is the current exchange price, but then you get into Bitcoin, and it doesn't matter how much, I mean, how high the fees are. So that is my point about getting into, I mean, with ATMs is different, I mean, definitely different. But if you want to invest a serious amount, I guess, or some decent amount of money, it's super easy. You can do it in so many different, I mean, brokers here, even in Bulgaria. You can use international exchanges and so forth. So I don't think the fee is a big problem for people who want to get in. I mean, that was
You're not helping a debate, by the way.
This is my point.
Making some points, which I'm not too sure which side are you in now, now.
So I guess we should open it for people from.
Do you guys wanna do any of you wants to go and come here and join for any of the sides?
Yeah, don't be shy. Or you don't need to come here. Maybe we can give you the microphone.
By the way,
yeah, just a sec.
Yeah. By the way, like the point of these debates and stuff like that is at the end of the day, so much happening in crypto. We founded this group like 2 years ago, probably now, and I'm missing it. Like last month, I have no idea what's happened. So it's too much stuff going on, and it's important to have these debates, open discussions to understand. So think of it as a very casual setting, and just come by, ask questions if you will, give your opinion if you like, whatever. The point is to kind of have more of understanding, because at the end of the day, too few people understand what's really happening, and yeah, the rest of us are just following the.
Don't be shy.
The fear of missing out.
We know you have questions. Ask the questions.
We have too many.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned that you want to scale block size while not other solutions are not ready, but SegWit was ready 2 years ago, and Lightning Network has been working at 100% of the testnet for a lot of time. So what is really the problem here? Why don't you want SegWit? Why do you want Bcash?
I never said I don't want SegWit. Honestly, I don't have a very specific opinion on SegWit. The thing is that we already have it for a few months now, and the fees are still high. I don't see anything fast going on with SegWit. I don't see that it's gonna actually help scaling so fast. And we need a solution right now. A solution which is going to work, and it's not just supposed to work because some guys are promising or developing something. And the thing is, because I have a question for you as well. You said that it is possible for some money to be a store of value and not before actually it becomes a medium of exchange. And I've been involved in gold business for 10 years now and have been studying history of money. I have never ever seen in the history of our time that there has been money that first they were useful for something, then they become a medium of exchange, then they become a store of value, and eventually they grow, become a unit of account. And now we're killing the use case for medium of exchange for Bitcoin, and we're hoping that it's going to stay as a store of value. That's not going to happen.
Well, first, fees are high because nobody's using SegWit. All the big companies, Coinbase, BitBase, Zappo, you name it, Blockchain Info, they're not implementing SegWit, and a stupid startup with, I don't know, a bunch of people implemented SegWit in a week. I mean, I'm using SegWit, and some friends of mine are also using SegWit. It's not that complicated to implement, but I understand it's a security feature. It's a security issue that they're concerned about, that taking so long to implement. And also Shapeshift is not using SegWit. So after those companies start implementing SegWit, we will see a drastic change in fees. I'm 100% sure about it. And the other question was about the gold, the store of value. That you say that first money is a medium of exchange, then store of value. Well, with gold was like when we had the currency, the fiat currency that was backed by gold. It was an effect of the like, it was a way to make the exchange easier between people, and because nobody wants to carry gold bars in their pockets, right? So but first,
they used to before that.
They used to before that. They were carrying gold.
Yeah.
And they wanted to make it easier, so they were kind of a medium of exchange, but not completely. Don't you agree?
I agree. Probably the fiat money system that we have now is a second layer solution on gold, and we already see that second layer solutions are not working. So we need to build the first layer first.
But they're not backed by gold. That's the thing. We're gonna have.
Well, they were backed by gold before.
And they abandoned it for.
To manage the money supply on the second layer solution.
I mean, the question is like why I said that first money has to be a store value, then a medium of exchange, then a unit of account, and the point I was bringing was the example with gold, because that's how it evolved with gold. The paper came after that, right?
So you're saying that basically fiat currency and credit cards and everything is second layer to gold, but the problem there is the money supply, because it's issued by governments, which not necessarily going to the other solutions type of, you know, second layer solution on the Bitcoins if the money supply is managed properly.
Exactly. I think that second layer is kind of like the fiat backed by gold, but backed by Bitcoin. Like, yeah, that's how I imagine it as an analog in my head. Yeah.
It's getting a bit messy, so I'll try to manage.
Just 2 sentences.
One point you, and then.
Just gonna say that I don't think you should compare the two, because they're completely different. The fiat system that we have with the fractional reserve system is not what we would have with the second layer solution of Bitcoin, because there, you know, that's how many Bitcoins are in supply. With the dollars, the fiat, the euro, you have no clue. And I don't want to use the F word, but you don't have an effing clue how many are in circulation, and that's just apples to oranges, you know. So I think it's fine that Bitcoin started as it was used as a store of value, and in the beginning was used mostly as people just having, you know, like just this new thing. I mean, what was its use case? You know, like people didn't know yet how it would work. In the very beginning, no, Satoshi had the vision, but my point is, how it's going to go, it doesn't matter. The point is, where are we going with it? I don't think there is a rule that says, oh, you should first have a store of value and then you should have this. I think, yeah, okay, but I think this is very different. This is not controlled by anyone. So it's about, you know.
So I just want to say about SegWit adoption, one of the reasons that the businesses aren't doing it are because they're conservative. For the same reason that Bitcoin Core developers want to be conservative, it's the same thing. It's a business conservative. It's like, do we all of a sudden move to this brand new technology? To be fair, it's possible that once everybody moves over to SegWit, that will create more bandwidth up to an extent. I don't think that will be enough, but it will get better. But at the same point, you actually have to move your coins from one wallet to another, which is something that not only businesses, but individual people, especially those that have been hodling for a while, aren't going to just move their coins. So it's something that part of the network might use, and then it will help a bit, but I don't think enough. And then as far as Lightning Network, it's true that it's been tested to technically work for months or perhaps even a year, But that's very, very different than it actually working in the field as a business use case and to seeing how it actually works. So in a sense, it's a startup, and it might work, and it might be great, and it might fail. But I don't think that we should put all of our hopes into Lightning networks as if that's going to be the savior of high fees.
Can I just say one last thing? I do completely agree with you when you said that the safety of funds should be the first priority and business should be conservative, but this is like having a horse carriage and you are asked whether you want to add more horses to the carriage or you want to switch to a car. And to me, the choice is obvious. I would take the car, which is the Lightning Network.
So first of all, I want to point out that SegWit is actually an on-chain solution. So when you're saying, if you want the solution to be SegWit, the fees will go down, that you're saying that you're going to increase the bandwidth, you're going to have an on-chain solution. It happens to be a very complex on-chain solution, and it has the same problems as a block size increase where it's a one-time shot. The other point I want to make is that if you, let's say, have a $10 fee, that doesn't just mean you can't do transactions for $10. It means you can't do transactions for $100 or $500 because nobody wants to pay 10 to 20% for their transaction fees. And as Adam Back said, one of the CEO of Blockstream, we're going to see $100 fees on chain. That means nobody's going to be able to do $1,000 or maybe even $10,000 worth of transactions. So if you're selling me a system that costs that you can only get into if you have $10,000, that doesn't seem like this world-changing, decentralizing force for the entire world that we're buying into with Bitcoin. So I think fees can get to the point where it's an existential problem. And sometimes a 1 terabyte hard drive maybe costs $100 today. Well, if I'm paying $100 in fees to verify my $100 transactions, that doesn't seem like a very big investment. That's it.
You kind of covered my question there, but I have another one. Since we have been talking on-chain versus off-chain, and I did an experiment with some gold that I bought from your company. I put a gold bar in a safety deposit box alongside with a wallet, a hardware wallet with 1 Bitcoin on my birthday, which is 1st of August. And I received Bitcoin Cash, and then I received Bitcoin Gold, and now I think I'm going to receive Bitcoin Diamond. So my question kind of leads on to that. How does that relate to the on-chain, off-chain, and what are your thoughts on that?
Guys, do you have more questions? Maybe we'll do a round because there are quite a few points which are relevant for you guys to answer. Last one. Yeah. Would you remember the question?
At the beginning of this summer, there was crypto meetup called Bitcoin is Dead, Long Live Blockchain. And since then, only numbers have changed. There are many other solutions that have the same properties with Bitcoin and something else, and they are better. So why, instead of thinking how to save Bitcoin, think how to change to other cryptocurrencies? And why are we still thinking how to save Bitcoin?
Very good question.
Okay, so I just want to say that for me, this discussion was interesting in the on-chain versus off-chain, not in the context of Bitcoin, but it seems like that is how we're looking at it. I cannot answer your Lightning questions. I cannot answer a lot of these questions because to me, like I'm actually not a Bitcoin maximalist. So as strange as it may sound, because usually the on-chain or the off-chain proponents actually are. I'm all for innovation, but at the same time, to me, Bitcoin is this gateway to fiat. Let it be. I don't care actually what happens with it, but I believe in scalability happening outside of blockchain, actually. Because to me, it's not on-chain or off-chain, it's actually not chain. The solution isn't necessarily a blockchain, actually, as a structure. I believe in peer-to-peer decentralization. We're actually researching other methods to achieve that. Because blockchain is, to me, is an overused term. That to achieve decentralization, you don't necessarily need to use blockchain, blockchain this, blockchain that. But it is, at the moment, the best solution we know. And it is good to provide this gateway to the rest of the world. But all the magic, I think, is going to happen off the chain. So.
And why we still talk about saving Bitcoins, because the best developers work on Bitcoin. There's some of the smartest cryptographers are involved in the project, and the biggest innovation is still in Bitcoin and not in altcoin.
Well, I kind of disagree with that, because Bitcoin obviously doesn't change very easily, and all the other projects which are in the shadow, they could implement a lot of new technologies. They can experiment more easily, and there's a higher chance that they will figure out scalability way easier than Bitcoin right now.
And we see how successful they are with Ethereum, for example.
Well, the good thing is that this is a very open free market, extremely high competition. So whatever we say right now, we're actually going to see the results of that pretty soon.
I was being sarcastic that Ethereum is actually pretty weak with their security proposal.
Well, I will say that I think Bitcoin still has an advantage as the most stable coin as far as security is concerned, and it's been around for a very long time, and that's very valuable. We know how robust it is, and we don't necessarily know that as much about other coins. I'm happy to see competing coins, and I love the fact that there is now a healthy free market of cryptocurrencies, and eventually Bitcoin may falter, and other currencies may end up beating out the network effect of Bitcoin. But in the meantime, if there's one thing to say for the Bitcoin core development team, is that they have kept things stable, and there haven't been major events. That comes at a certain price, and I'm not sure that they've found the right balance. But I do think that that's kind of the reason why it's still important to see Bitcoin go in a good direction. At the same time, I'm very happy that there are alternatives. And just one more thing about the fees being high is one of the things that I like to tell people when they're interested in investing in Bitcoin is don't just do it because you see the price going up, do it because you're excited about the technology. Of course, that wouldn't have necessarily always been good advice, but that's what feels right to me. And so I like to see people playing around with Bitcoin, you know, sending them a dollar's worth, having them send some to some friends, actually playing around with it. And you can't play around with Bitcoin when the fees are that high. So what I would suggest for them to do right now is, okay, well, try Ethereum or Zcash and play around with that and see, or Dash, and see how that feels. And if you like it, well then maybe you can also get some Bitcoin as well.
There was a question here about the forks with the Bitcoin Diamond, which is coming. Yeah.
So I
generally probably Valia's question. Now we have both Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin.
Right.
So is the debate over, basically?
So we have, well, I mean, in a sense, the debate is marketized, right? So what you have is you have people that believe in Bitcoin Cash, investing in Bitcoin Cash, sometimes selling their Bitcoin to do that, and people that think that Bitcoin Cash is a scam, sell their Bitcoin Cash and put it right back into Bitcoin. So in a sense, I think it's healthier than just fighting over it. Though debates are important as well. So I personally am happy that Bitcoin Cash exists, but it comes with I guess an unforeseen cost, and especially when you consider things like Bitcoin Gold and Bitcoin Diamond right now, is that it actually has an impact on the security of people's coins. because there's this little reward, and it's really just a honeypot. People are going to expose all of their coins, take them out of storage just so they can get a little bit of free coins. And by doing that, exposing the Bitcoin that they have. So it's a vulnerability for privacy. And I think that that as a whole is a negative thing.
Do we have any more questions? If not, we can probably go with a final round of you guys just saying a couple of final words. And then I'll do something like a test. You want to add something?
Yeah. So when we're talking about fees of Bitcoin in the main Bitcoin network going to $100 to $1,000, this means that transactions are going up. I mean, this means that Bitcoin is working. So I think we won't get there, I mean, to such high fees because the market will not be able to absorb those fees. So if we're talking about fees of $1,000, I don't think this is going to happen really. And if it happens, that means that Bitcoin is really working because there are a lot of transactions happening in the network. So somebody is willing to pay that fee in order to do a transaction in Bitcoin. So there must be some kind of a economic sense behind this. So we're not there yet. I mean, I think it's going to take a very long time to reach fees of $100 even. At the same time, I believe that when we're talking about fees, there are different levels of fees. Like, do you want your transaction to be included in the next block, or can you wait like for some time for your transaction? And there could be a very large difference in price, like in the value of the fee that you're paying, if you are, for example, not in a hurry. If you want your transaction to be included in the next block, you'll always pay the highest fee. It's still possible not to pay a fee in Bitcoin, and this has happened to me. Actually, there was or pay such a low fee that basically there is more or less no fee. And what happens? You just wait 2 days, and the transaction goes through. I mean, it's not a great user experience, but it's not it's not the end of the world. So this is just my comment.
Okay, so again, to me, off-chain solutions along the lines of side chains, of some other structures that are actually not blockchains would be the solution. As long as they're decentralized, I think we have maintained the spirit of what this is all about, crypto in general. I think, to me, Bitcoin's value, Bitcoin really serves the purpose of providing this layer of decentralization, ability to onboard from fiat to it and back and forth. But all the magic will happen outside of Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin needs to be stable, needs to be trusted by all the players, and so to me, all the innovation needs to happen off of it because it's actually risky, but we have to take risks in order to innovate. And so that's where the magic will happen. This layer allows us to get off the banks into the crypto, and in crypto there's this magic that will happen, but it will take time. Just like the internet, we had the .com boom in 2000. Took how many years? Now we have these companies that are worth hundreds of billions of dollars, but back then Yahoo, $600 million buyout was insanely high, right? So it was all speculation in 2000, yet the speculative value was nothing compared to what it's now, when it's actually working. Took what, decades? So it will take decades probably to get there. So yeah, so to me, long-term solutions is the answer.
Yeah, Amazon dumped 90% 2 times in its lifespan, and it's still making trillions of deals every day. But if you look at the core developers and people working on the base layer, you can see that they're older dudes. And if you go next level, layer 2, there are a lot of young kids, and this is kind of makes sense. You know, older people want security; they're super conservative. And I think it should stay like this. It should stay, the base layer should be secure and decentralized to keep this property of censorship resistance, because that's the main selling point of Bitcoin. And off-chain stuff, they're fun to play, and you can see that young people get involved in it. And similarly to Ethereum, in a way, but we see in Ethereum is kind of mess, and there's a saying Ethereum is not a security because it's not secure. So we don't want to have that in Bitcoin. We don't want to be a security, right? So like Ethereum, in a sarcastic way. But yeah, my point is that we're going to see a lot of new business use cases that we haven't even thought about. And the Lightning stuff, like I'm not a developer. I don't exactly know the mechanics, and I haven't dived deeper into it. But I know that these guys are heavily invested in it. Like some really bright minds are working on keeping the same properties we had for the last 9 years.
You mentioned magic. I don't believe in magic very much. I believe in practical solutions. And if we go to the heart of this debate, I can summarize that it's engineer-minded people who want to engineer and invent stuff versus business-minded people who want to practicality. They want to make stuff work right now. This is at the heart. We could probably figure out a solution in increasing perpetually the block size along with the natural increase of the bandwidth and storage capacity of the world, and this will already provide a very good solution so far. Then the second layer, magic, could happen on top of that, and if it works, it'll be good. If it doesn't work, we're at least not risking the system, because right now Bitcoin is at a huge risk. I have personally reduced significantly the weight of Bitcoin in my crypto portfolio, and to all our clients as well, because if nothing happens in Bitcoin, people will start using Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Dash, or whatever for everyday transactions, and that's what keeps the value up.
Before Bitcoin started having the scaling issue, there was a kind of a short period, maybe 2013, 2014, where there's some real old school altcoins that weren't very great and didn't get very far. And then for a while, Bitcoin was just all on its own. And then Ethereum came into the picture, and everybody thought, well, this is a cool experiment, but it's going to stay that way for a while. And when the Bitcoin fees started going up, people just started buying Ethereum because the fees were lower. It wasn't even because of the technology of Ethereum at that point. It was just because we don't think Bitcoin can go anywhere. And it was the people that had been owning Bitcoin for a while saying, we're not sure about Bitcoin's, if Bitcoin is capable of scaling. And that's what we've seen kind of since then. We've seen Bitcoin all of a sudden go from 100% down to 60 and 50% at times. People talking about the flippening. You see right now, like Bitcoin's price, if you look at Bitcoin Cash, it's what, 12, 13, 14, 15% of Bitcoin's price. That's some pretty serious money into a solution that isn't there yet, but people are buying it just because they can actually use it. And with Bitcoin right now, a lot of people just can't use it. Now, it's true that a lot of people are buying Bitcoin, and that's why the price is going up. But if you look at all the value in all the other currencies, those are the people that aren't buying Bitcoin. It isn't only because of the technology in those cryptocurrencies, it's because they can actually use them.
Can I reflect? Who's using Bitcoin Cash? I think it's only listed on an exchange with 0 fees. It's most volume coming from. And Roger Ver gets super mad and rage quits on an interview. He gets confronted about it. And he calls it his project. And yeah. Yeah, but look at the Bitump exchange. It is just Bitcoin Cash, and it's 0 fee exchange. And you look at the blocks; they're not full, and there's no transactions happening on the blockchain.
Blocks. They're 8 megabyte up to 8 megabyte blocks. They're not going to be full for a while. There's obviously not as much use in Bitcoin Cash right now as Bitcoin. I'm not trying to say, hey, look, it's replaced it. I'm saying this is a lot of money that could have been on Bitcoin that isn't, and a lot of faith that has been put into Bitcoin Cash, even though in some ways it's still half-baked, because people believe that the problem with Bitcoin is so severe.
So now the test. First of all, yeah, that will be the last. I'll just give it because you're the only one, but maybe we'll wrap it up afterwards.
Okay, so thanks. I think that the fees are not the only part of this debate, and another part is the transaction times. So, for example, if I want to buy a beer or make a decentralized app, transaction times are very important. I don't want to wait 10 or 30 minutes for my transaction to confirm. So how do you solve this on-chain?
Yes. You guys want to take it, or it's for the on-chain guys? Yes.
Well,
Right. So what was done in Bitcoin in the early days, when fees were low, is that you start drinking your beer, you're still there. If it doesn't confirm, or if you try double spending it, you might get into trouble. So there's an element of it's not trustless for a beer. It's not trustless for a coffee. And you have to wait those 10 minutes for it to confirm. But on the other hand, the fees weren't so high at that time. So yes, it's true. I mean, with Ethereum, you have 15-second transaction times. That would make a lot more sense if you want to make sure that you have a beer that's confirmed on the blockchain while, as you're drinking it. Then 15-second block time would be a lot better than waiting for Bitcoin, which is 10 to sometimes over an hour, depending on how small a fee you want to, or weeks, how small a fee you want to leave.
You good? Okay, well, let's wrap it up. First of all, actually, I want to thank these guys for the very civilized debate. So give them a huge round of applause, because there was definitely no blood and tears and fighting. Nothing like the group. Yeah, the group is, you see the difference between online and offline, which is offline there is civilized conversation, online there is trolling, but yeah, that's life. So the test is this. Before coming to this event, how many of you were supporting the off-chain side? Raise hand. Okay. How many of you were supporting the on-chain side before coming to the event? Okay, so the rest of you, were you unsure? Yes? Who are you? Who is the fourth group? Okay, now the big verdict. After this event, after the arguments, who is supporting the off-chain side? I think we can visualize. Yeah, I'll ask at the end.
Anyone change his mind?
Later. How many of you are supporting the on-chain side? That's the most unsure audience in the world. So who changed your mind? Okay, one. Okay. Who is still unsure what's going on? Okay, anyways. But the fact that we're doing this debate means that something is happening. Many of you said innovation is important. Many of you said that, like, at the end of the day, we need like sort of an alternative system for gold and all these things that evolved. So are we kind of repeating history, or are we kind of trying to make a new history? But at the end of the day, it's important also to be able to be part of that innovation with, like, if fees are too high, you'll never buy. But probably it's not true, because many people are buying anyways. But that's it. Probably that's it. I'm not too sure who win.
If we have to judge on the number of hands for off-chain, it's off-chain.
Okay.
But I mean, it doesn't matter. Maybe I can. It doesn't matter. Like somebody mentioned that now we have Bitcoin Cash, we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash is for transactions. Bitcoin is digital gold. So we have two markets which we can look at and follow, and the market is the best judge. So we will see in time what's going to happen if the Bitcoin gold will go down in value and the Bitcoin Cash will go up, or Bitcoin Cash value will always be a function of the Bitcoin gold value or something. So we have two markets. Bitcoin Cash needs to get adoption, like wider adoption, because fees are much lower. It will take some time, but now we have these two experiments. I'm not talking about Bitcoin Diamond and Bitcoin, what was it, the other one? The gold, actually, Bitcoin Gold. These are a bit, Yeah, Bitcoin Platinum, and we have all kinds of things. But Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, something, two projects that we need to look at, and time will tell who will be better, who will be most used.
And at the end of the day, as Vlad said, this is experiment. So at the end of the day, the next debate probably should be this sort of world against the other sort of world, which is the existing financial infrastructure and the fiat currency and whatever central banks are doing. So at the end of the day, it's about experiment. So we'll see which one is working. The point is we're participating in some sort of innovation. And innovation is happening everywhere. So just a friend of ours will tell a little bit about their innovation of what they're doing. He's the owner of one of the best burger places in Sofia called Skaptubara. So, you know, at the end of the day, these things need to get to the real life, right? So.
Thank you. Yeah, that was, I was going to say, whether it's on-chain or off-chain, people need to see that, people need to see that this is real life. And they can use that Bitcoin, or because Bitcoin is the poster child for all cryptocurrencies. So Bitcoin is where people get involved into, and I think that people need to see that they can use Bitcoin for real life purchases. And despite all of the high fees, despite all of the debates that are going here, because all of the people here in this room are early adopters or people interested in early in technology, despite whether the fees are high or not, people need to see that they can use that Bitcoin for something, and despite whether the solution is going to be on-chain or off-chain, we are actually processing transactions way more than I was expecting to. We do maybe over a transaction a day, which for such a small amount of, because for example, we sell burgers and the burgers cost like $6, $7, as much as the transaction fees. But there's still people that are enthusiastic about Bitcoin, and I think it's really important, not just for us, but for all people that are able to start accepting Bitcoin and spread the word, so that people who have never used Bitcoin get involved with it. And then you can talk to them about on-chain, off-chain, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Diamond, yeah, whatever.
Hey, by the way, you can buy a Satoshi burger, right, in Skaptubara, only with Bitcoin.
And you'll pay double because of the fee.
Yeah. You pay double because of the fee, but it's the best burger in place.
I actually bought one 2 days ago. I bought a Satoshi burger.
You can, we're doing this not to promote Skaptubara on the Bitcoin society, but to promote Bitcoin, the Bitcoin on Skaptubara's fans. So with that regard, we don't mind waiting for your transaction. You can come to Skaptubara, you can eat, you can drink, you can send your transaction to our wallet, you can choose the amount of fee you want to pay, and we'll wait. If you want to cancel a transaction and double spend it, that's fine with us.
Cool. So thanks, guys. If you want to do a little bit of chat and networking, please do. There are still more beers, I guess. Not that many, so yeah. Run for your life.
That was actually the last meetup for this year, so we'll see you guys next year, 2018, in January. Have a great...
When there is going to be a 6th Bitcoin.